Welcome to the Contrarians, and tonight we are having a panel discussion. The topic, our favorite EPs. If you're not sure what an EP is, an EP contains more tracks than a single, but fewer than an album. Reed Little is here to host. The panel is ready to discuss. So without any further ado, let's get started.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Contrarians. This evening we have a Patreon suggested topic of our favorite EPs. We're going to go around our panelists, give everybody 8 minutes of screen time to talk about their favorite EPs, or maybe just one EP. I don't judge. I have a little bit of background to go over. First, there's no formal definition of an EP. The two letters do stand for extended play. It's something that's halfway between a single on 45 RPM and an LP or long play, which is a 33 1/3 RPM record. But in America, there's no formal definition, and once things went to digital, it got even murkier. However, in the UK, they do have a formal definition. It can be no more than 25 minutes long and have no more than 4 songs, not including bonus versions of the same songs already on the EP, as if that wasn't confusing enough. There have been EPs that were the #1 album in America. I will hold the first because it's an album I'm going to talk about. But the second was Linkin Park and Jay-Z, their Collision Course EP in 2004. And the #1 selling EP of all time in the United States, and this blew my mind, Ugly Kid Joe. Who knew? I had no idea that that EP sold that much. So we're going to start this evening. Pardon me. We're going to start this evening with Phil. Phil, your 8 minute starts now. Tell us about your EPs.
Cool. All right. Everyone can hear me well? Yes, great. So again, thanks for having me. This is a real cool topic. I did have to do a little bit of research through my discography, my CDs and whatever, and a little bit of history. I don't have any props with me, unfortunately, but okay, I'm gonna give you 5 choices in order of preference. And Reed, it's really cool you're wearing the Sanctuary t-shirt tonight, because what I'm gonna say now is related. So my first choice, well, my 5th one, going in reverse order, is by the US metal band Nevermore. The EP is called In Memory. It was released in, there you go, you got my prop, thank you, excellent. So released in July 1996. It features 5 tracks and it clocks in at 26 minutes. It followed also the debut album, the eponymous debut album, Nevermore. And of course, one has to mention that Nevermore guitarist is Jeff Loomis, one of the most phenomenal guitarists of his generation. He almost replaced Marty Friedman in Megadeth. And of course, Warrell Dane on vocals, who was in Sanctuary, and whom we sadly lost in 2017. Okay, my number 4 is again, I'm staying within a metal region, is the first ever release by the German power metal band Helloween. It's the eponymous EP, Helloween. That is before they released their latest full-length album, also called Helloween. So this one also features 5 tracks, so it's breaking the British rules, I guess. Of course, these tracks, for those who might not know, also featured on the official first LP, Walls of Jericho. And yes, it also came out in 1985. And of course, it features on lead guitar and vocals Mr. Kai Hansen, who is known to many as one of the, if not the grandfather, godfather, whatever you want, of power metal, full stop. And number 3, something totally different, not at all metal. So I was thinking of the EP by Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies, which again is pretty long, for an EP. Thank you again. Excellent. We're gonna have a bit of overlap, I guess, tonight. Yes, the EP of Alice in Chains, which clocks in at 30 minutes, and it features 7 tracks. So that's pretty long for an EP. Of course, it features such massive hits as Nutshell or No Excuses. Excellent album. I haven't checked exactly again. I haven't done my research, but it did have great. It did chart very high. Number 2, and I'm pretty sure you'll have a prop for this one as well. 1982, the eponymous EP by Queensryche, of course. There we go. Thank you very much. Which clocks in this time only at 17 minutes. So that fits in perfectly with the definition, if you like. It's a pretty short EP. Of course, this is well known for that massive hit and one of the most influential songs of its kind, "The Queen of the Reich," with the great Jeff Tate on those soaring vocals. And for my number 1, I don't know if you'll have a prop for this one. My favorite band of all time, I guess. All my friends would probably tell me it is my favorite band. That's Dream Theater and their famous EP, Change of Seasons, which is, I think it might be the longest EP in history. It reaches up to 57 minutes, right? Which is actually pretty short for any Dream Theater standards. Most of their albums clock in at around 70 minutes, 75 minutes. So this is an EP which features the one song, Change of Seasons, which lasts 24 minutes. It's an incredible epic, lyrically also inspired by many events in the life of drummer Mike Portnoy. For example, the tragic loss of his mother in a plane crash. And the song also features a lot of these sort of poems around Carpe Diem, before even that famous film that made this Latin proverb very famous, the Dead Poets Society, came out. So it's a big chapter in the story of Dream Theater. Came out in 1995. It is indeed one of the longest EPs in history. And also it's very long because it features additionally very many covers. So a cover of Perfect Strangers. Is that it? Yes, sorry. By Deep Purple. It features a cover of Elton John's Love Lies Bleeding, Funeral for a Friend, and a very long medley which contains everything from Led Zeppelin to Genesis to Kansas and more. The last thing I should probably say is that this EP is very important for me because obviously, first of all, it kind of accompanied me through a long period of time where I was really getting into rock and metal, and especially into prog, and it was playing all the time in my teenage bedroom. And I should also say that this was the first time, like listening to this EP, it was the first time I ever heard songs like Turn It On Again by Genesis, or Carry On My Wayward Son, or Achilles' Last Stand, which are some of the covers in the long medley on this album. So before I even, as a young teenager, before I even got acquainted with Zeppelin or Genesis or Kansas, I got acquainted with them through Dream Theater and the Change of Seasons EP. So there you go.
Very cool, Phil. Thank you very much. 56 minutes is really stretching any conceivable definition of the EP term, but we will allow it. Okay, and by the way, guys, I'm getting a notice from my computer that my internet is unstable, so if I drop out, please let me know. We're going next to John Clauser. John, you've got 8 minutes to tell us about all of your favorite EPs.
All right, here we go. I'm going to breeze through mine pretty quickly. So this one first one came out after their kind of dip into a little bit of commercialism in their sound. I'm talking about the band Raven with their little EP here called Mad. 5 songs of just brutal, aggressive Raven that we all know and love so much that we miss, and we were thankful that they came back with it on on Raven Mad. Next one, 1984, the debut here of Stryper with the Yellow and Black Attack. Is it really my favorite? Not really, but there's 6 good songs on there that get you started as far as where they're heading to, and I think they would just build upon that with Soldiers Under Command. The next one up is 2001's from a band called X-Toll, Norwegian kind of death metal, Christian death metal, if you can imagine that. So this has 4 tracks. It's one, the title song Paralysis is an instrumental that leads into a song called Your Beauty Divine, which is kind of a stage just staple for them, where they have a crazy blacklight thing going off at the end of the song, which really is pretty cool. They do a cover of a band called Believer with a song called Shadow of Death, which is really strong, and a song called Human Frailty's Grave, which was like a B-side from their first album. Next one. This one is a wonderful album that I have talked a lot about on my own channel, My Music Corner. This was one of the very first Metal Blade releases. This was a band called Warlord. 6 songs on an album called Deliver Us, featuring now you have the drummer that would eventually go on to Fate's Warning, Mark Zonder, lyricist and composer and guitar player Bill Samus, rest in peace. This just is an enormous, this was enormous in Greece. Just wonderful tracks, lots of, almost like an epic feel to just about every song. Definitely Nawabum influenced. You can definitely hear some UFO, probably some prog, just a little bit of everything, but every song sounds a little bit different. And it's just, I just absolutely have loved this album ever since I first heard it in the late 80s. And the last one I'm going to talk about, let's see, I actually have 5 minutes, so I can actually spend a couple minutes on this one. So when I was about 15, 16 years old, I was collecting Iron Maiden singles wherever I could. And in the record bins, I was always around the I section, and I would keep finding this little EP from this band out of Minnesota. They were known for their shock rock and kind of this weird punky kind of vibe, but it's, I don't know, it's just like, yeah, just, it was so raw and just so ridiculous and over the top. And I'm talking about the band Impaler with Rise of the Mutants. 4 songs, sounds like it was recorded in your garage or your basement, but it's just 4 songs of raw, unadulterated, just fun, catchy songs. I still love listening to this thing 30 some years later. It just celebrated a 40th anniversary not too long ago. This thing is just, it's just way too much fun to listen to. You can't help but not take it seriously because it's just that much fun. So there you go. Those are going to be my choices. So I gave somebody extra time.
Very good, John. Thank you very much. I had forgotten that Impaler even existed. Not that I'm inspired to seek that one out. All right, let's move on to Jonathan Banahasky. Jonathan, welcome. Let's hear about your EPs.
So can you, real quick, the definition of EP, is it less than 6 songs? Is that what it was?
Well, what we've determined is in the US, there really isn't a definition. It's the British that have the definition. And for them, it's 4 songs and 25 minutes.
Okay. So actually, Phil took one of mine, which I'm going to still talk about because I love it so much. It's Change of Seasons. This album, to me, you know, the reason I bought the album was I was getting into Zeppelin at the time, and it did have Achilles' Last Stand on it. So I'm, you know, at Best Buy, you know, I don't even know if Best Buy sells music anymore, but this is like over 20 years ago. And I got this album, and I ended up getting it because of Achilles' Last Stand. And then it had, you know, Funeral for a Friend, Perfect Strangers was another big one on there too. And I ended up buying that at 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. So there was a ton of Dream Theater I bought at the time. didn't understand it as much back then as I do now. You know, being 18, 19 years old, it's like some of that stuff is like, wow, this is way too much. And then the more I progressed, it's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. But yeah, this album, the song is just, it's brilliant. You know, I always say 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, the song, you know, the second CD and this song are just like two of the best compositions. And you put Octavarium up there too for Dream Theater. Those are just 3 of the best written songs ever. I mean, not even by, you can call it progressive metal. You know, I'm a big prog guy. I'm a big Rush fan. You know, there's a lot of great, obviously a lot of great Rush songs, but to me, this is just the best. Another band I wanted to talk about too is a band out of, I believe it's Norway or Sweden. It's Magic Pie. If anybody's ever heard of Magic Pie, they are one of the best prog bands. They only have 5 albums out, but you know, I don't know if this is going to be an essential, like an EP, but I wanted to pick, you know, The Suffering Joy was one of them. And I know it's a little bit more, and you know, it's my fault. I didn't count the number of songs, but their number of songs and that album to me is just quintessential current prog. I love the European music right now, but it's, to me, some of the best music I've heard from a new band in years. So, but those are the 2 albums I really wanted to really talk about. But yeah, this is, you just can't go wrong here. So, yeah, I got some extra time, and, you know, leave it up to other people if they want to use that time. So thanks.
Okay, well, that's 2 people going for the 56-minute EP. Like I said, I don't work for the record industry. Call whatever you want an EP. I'm all good. All right, Matt Thompson. Did Blue Oyster Cult ever do an EP? I don't think they did.
Oh, you're gonna have to wait for my number 1s.
Okay. All right, surprise me.
Okay, so I've got my top 3 favorite EPs that I wanted to talk about, and the first one is by John Arch. So this is A Twist of Fate, and John Arch was the singer for Fate's Warning for the first several Fate's Warning albums, and then really got out of the music business to have to work a straight job, and didn't come back until 2003 for this EP. And Phil had mentioned, and Jonathan as well, Dream Theater. Mike Portnoy is the drummer on this EP, and you've got Jim Mateos and Joey Vera from Fates also on the EP. It only has 2 songs, so well within even British restrictions, although it just barely makes the 25-minute limit, because it's a 15-minute song and a 12-minute song. So, well, maybe they don't. I guess 27 minutes would be a little bit over, but only 2 songs. I think they're both masterpieces. So it's Relentless and Cheyenne are the 2 songs. It's hard to believe that he had not been out singing and recording and performing live for all that time and could still sound so good. Has very, very complex melodies throughout. The songwriting, to me, is mind-blowing, just where he comes up with such complexities with the melodies of the lines that he's singing. Very progressive album. The lyrics, I think, are great. It's emotional at times. It's heavy at times. Each song takes you on a journey. So really a big fan of that album. That's my number 3 choice. My number 2 choice is by the Minutemen, Project Mersh. So this came out in 1985, and Mersh was kind of their slang for being commercial. And they had come off of their Double Nickels on the Dime 2 record set before this release. And in that, Double Nickels on the Dime has got just tons and tons of basically about 2-minute songs. And I guess you would not call it very commercial. So this is their sort of sarcastic take on, okay, now we're going to make a commercial record. And the cover is painted by D. Boone of the Minutemen. So he's the guitarist and one of the 2 singers. And this really cracks me up. So it's these board members for some sort of record company, and it's got a little quote saying, "I got it. We'll have them write hit songs," as if that will suddenly make the Minutemen appeal to the masses, which of course it didn't, but it's a great EP. It has 3 songs on each side. There's kind of a D Boon side and then a Mike Watt side in terms of who writes each song. I would say 4 of the 6 songs are among my absolute favorite Minutemen songs of all time. So the Cheerleaders and Take Our Test are just really, really great classic Minutemen songs. The songs are a bit longer than they were up until this point, kind of leading into what their next full-length album would be, which is Three-Way Tie for Last. That followed more of the pattern of these songs. It has my favorite Minutemen song on it, which is called King of the Hill. In addition to the 3 members of Minutemen, so guitar, drums, and bass, there's also trumpet playing on it, and it fits really well on that song. And then it has Torspiel, which is how I first heard of the Minutemen, because Torspiel has lyrics that mention Blue Oyster Cult Reed. And it has sort of this strange lyric about Mike Watt dreaming that he was Eric Bloom of Blue Oyster Cult, and then he meets up with Joe Bouchard in some town on the road and talks about the advice that he got from Richard Meltzer, and that they're on the Spectres tour. So that was how I first heard of them back in '85, and it's a very catchy song, a great little simple guitar riff, and one of my favorites. So that is my number 2 choice. And then my number 1 choice is Blue Oyster Cult. So this is the Blue Oyster Cult bootleg EP. So this came out after the first album. So the first album comes out in '72. This one, I believe, comes out in the beginning of '73, prior to Tyranny and Mutation coming out. This was a bit of a teaser for Tyranny Mutation. It's all live. It's got 4 live songs on it. One of them is The Red and the Black, which is going to appear on Tyranny Mutation. It's a reworking of a song that was on the first album, I'm on the Lamb But I Ain't No Sheep. But this is done in the full The Red and the Black arrangement, not the I'm on the Lamb arrangement. It was recorded at Nuggets Pizza Parlor in Rochester, New York. And it's really raw. It's it's almost sinister sounding at times. It has the first appearance of Buck's Boogie on it, which doesn't really show up again until this one. So the Columbia compilation, The Guitars That Destroyed the World, has the version that's on that EP. I believe the EP was just released to radio stations at the time, right? Just kind of help promote what the upcoming album would be. It's been, it's called Bootleg EP, but it's been bootlegged a bunch of times. I've got one of them here. This is kind of a well-known one that was done. You can see it's kind of in a smaller format. It's blue vinyl. It's on Reichstag Records. It has artwork like it's done by some sort of serial killer in a cell. Really strange stuff. It's vulgarly titled. This was how I got it the first time. It took me a while before I got the real Columbia release for it. So anyways, that is my number 1 choice, Blue Oyster Cult's bootleg EP.
Fantastic. Consider me schooled. I had not even been aware that one existed. All right, Joe B., let's hear what you've got for EPs, sir.
Well, I'm glad Phil brought up Jar of Flies and also the Queensryche EP, because they definitely cracked my top 5. I'm not going to list my top 5 because 2 right off the bat stand off to me. And I still don't know which one I would rank higher, but I'm going to make it a shot. So the first one, I can't show the front cover because the Contrarians show would get nuked. So I'm going to show the back. This is the Merciful Fate EP. And this thing is incredible. And when I bought it, I was like, what am I listening to? It's like Judas Priest mixed with the punk rock. It's just great. Corpse Without a Soul. It's called Nuns Without and Have No Fun because of the song. The lyrical content on that is extremely rough. When I listened to it and bought it, I thought for sure I was going to hell. Doomed by the Living Dead and Devil's Eyes is just incredible. The drums are slamming, the guitar, it's just like ripping leads and power chords. King Diamond's vocals, I think, have never been better. Like, everybody likes his solo stuff and the Melissa album and everything. I think this was Merciful Fate at their best. It's just incredible. I still listen to it all the time, and it was some evil stuff. Still probably is, but when it came out, I was like, holy cow. You know, I went to Catholic school my whole life, and then I buy this thing and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hell. But it's great. So but my number one is, and people, if you know me, you know I am a big fan of Wendy Williams and the Plasmatics, especially when they went heavy metal. And this is when they went heavy metal, the Metal Priestess EP. And the backstory on this is I saw them on the show Fridays, which was a Saturday Night Live knockoff, but it had Larry David on it and also Kramer. They had some big name acts. And this is Second City TV. I'm thinking Fridays. No, Second City TV was the Canadian show with John Candy. I apologize. So it was John Candy, the Fishin' musician, and they have the Plasmatics on, and they played the Doom song, which is on this album. And it just blew my mind. It was hard rocking, heavy metal. It was head and shoulders above their punk stuff. Although I do like Master Plan, which is on this. But it was so cool. And they blew up all their stuff, and a guy ran across the stage with a fire extinguisher. Just great stuff. But it's a lot of fun. It's great heavy metal. It's craziness. The lyrical content even applies to what people complain about today. But it has a song called Lunacy, the Doom song, which I mentioned. There's live versions of Sex Junkie and Master Plan. I think this live version of Master Plan might be better than the studio version. That's when they started really kind of going more away from the punk into the metal. But here they went full on metal. My favorite song is probably Black Leather Monster. It's just got a cool riff. And the Doom song too. Richie Stotts just has like, it's not much of a lead. It's just him hitting strings and the whammy bar, but it kicks ass. And 12 Noon, which is very cool too. So that's my top two. It comes in neck and neck, but I have to go with the Plasmatics because I just am a huge fan of when the Plasmatics went metal, and then the Wendy Williams 2 solo albums I'm a huge fan of as well. So I'm glad to participate in this show, and those are my picks.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, Joe. More EPs that I am not aware of. Not a big EP collector.
They both come in around 26 minutes, I think. So
let the UK have their own rules. We'll call whatever we want an EP.
And that's 26 minutes that will take you straight to hell.
What's that? What's that?
That's 26 minutes that will take you straight to hell.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. I still feel a little uncomfortable listening to None, so I have no fun, but it's a great song.
Awesome. All right, Rich, you are up, sir. Let's hear about your EPs.
Hey, I'm only going to talk about 3, and before I did that, I wanted to say to Matt that I almost included the Bloister Cult EP on my list. I have that on CD, and I really like it, especially their live version of Workshop of the Telescope, which is a lot different than the studio version. But anyhow, the 3 EPs I'm going to do couldn't be more different than each other. The first one is kind of like it was a promotional only EP. Doesn't really have a cover. Looks like this. It's Country Dick Montana from the Beat Farmers, and it's called The Home of Country Dick Montana. And I think it's really hilarious. He does a few covers, and the highlights of it are he does a Led Zeppelin medley, and he starts it up and saying, "I think I should have been the lead singer for Led Zeppelin." And it's him singing the Led Zeppelin songs in his kind of country voice, and that is hilarious. He does a Whole Lot of Love and an Immigrant Song, and it's really, really funny. And then on the other side, he does a funny little tune called Lakeside Trailer Park, and then it ends off with him doing a version of Karma Chameleon. And if you imagine, like, Karma Chameleon done with a country voice, that's what it sounds like. So I think that's hilarious. And my second choice
kind of surprised no one else mentioned it. AC/DC 74 Jailbreak. It only has like 5 songs on it. And I think the highlights for me are You Ain't Got a Hold on Me, a song I'd never heard before that came out. Baby Please Don't Go, that was a cover. And there's a hilarious video on of Bon Scott doing that song with them dressed in drag. It's really, you got to check it out. He's funny. And then the other song I like on it is Soul Stripper, which is kind of long for them, very different. And yeah, I quite like it. And my number one choice, again, this is one that I was surprised no one else chose, was Genesis, Spot the Pigeon, which consists of 3 songs that were kind of leftovers from Wind and Wuthering. And it includes Match of the Day, Pigeons, and Inside and Out. And Match of the Day and Pigeons are like 3.5 minute songs. Really pleasant sounding. I like the production on it. I thought the production on Wind and Wuthering is a little bit too keyboard heavy. And I think that there's less keyboards on this, just a much clearer sound. And then the highlight of it is the last song, a 6-minute song called Inside and Out, which is the big prog number on it. And it also has a great guitar solo by Steve Hackett at the end, in which he sounds a little bit like Steve Howe. So yeah, and I really like this EP a lot. So those are my 3 choices.
Sorry, I've got 2 computers going. I keep grabbing the wrong mouse. Thank you very much, Rich.
Sure.
And awesome. We're getting a wide variety of music. That's one of the things that I absolutely love about the Contrarians. A few things I'm going to try and check out once this show is over. All right, so we've still got nearly half an hour, so that gives me lots of time to talk. I'm just kidding. I'm only going to talk about a few things, and then maybe just do a little general EP discussion if people are interested. So we already talked about Jar of Flies. This was the first EP to ever reach #1 on the American sales charts in 1997. Although it is too long to be an EP in the UK. So eat it, UK. Alice in Chains did have another EP, Sap. Not as well known and frankly not as good. I love Jar of Flies. Alice in Chains is one of my most important bands from the early 90s. Of course, Queensryche. I like the EP better than Warning, maybe not as much as Rage for Order. I'm a huge Rage fan, but the songs on this, Queen of the Reich, Knight Rider, The Lady Wore Black, I love The Lady Wore Black. This is just a killer album. Honestly, I thought The Warning was a step down after this came out. I find it a little monochromatic. Nevermore, I talked about Nevermore a bunch over the last month, so I'm not going to beat it to death. I love Nevermore. They're one of my favorite metal bands of all time. World Dane was a troubled individual, and I'm sorry that his troubles eventually caught up with him. So for new content, I have a album that I bought in Berlin, Germany of all places, and that is from the band Anthrax. It's a little album called Panika Fessin. So this is the same trick they did on Among the Living, where they had a song called Efelnika Fessin, which is, you know, a bad word backwards. Like this one, this is nice F and EP backwards. I mean, I guess that counts as wit. I thought it was funny at the time. I was a teenager. So it's technically a single for Now It's Dark and Antisocial. But what I loved about it is they've got a cover of Kiss's Parasite. And it is a killer cover of Parasite. They also have a joke song called Friggin' in the Riggin', which, you know, I mean, fine. It was, again, I was a teenager. I thought it was funny, but I prefer it when my metal bands are a little straighter, maybe not as comedic. Now, stepping away from heavy metal for a second, I only have these digitally, so I don't have props, but I want to mention the 3 EPs that Noel Gallagher did during the lockdown: Black Star Dancing, Blue Moon Rising, and This Is the Place. Noel gave himself the rather unusual mandate of going into the studio for 2 weeks, 3 different times, and he was just going to release whatever he recorded during that time. And the albums are very weird. He's got dance music, he's got electronica, hard rock, he's got a sea shanty. They're very uneven. Each album, in my opinion, has 1 brilliant song, 1 okay song, and 1 throwaway song. And the title song is not always the brilliant song. But something really annoyed me about them. But now that we've got some time, I'm going to leave that as a discussion point. We'll get back to it. My top 2 EPs both came from the year 1987. I only had them as cassettes. I never picked them up on CD. Well, one in a modified format. And I can't find my cassettes. The first one was also by Anthrax, and that was for their EP of I'm the Man. Now, I'm the Man is often referred to as the first rap metal song. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a rap enthusiast. I can't debate that. I do know that early rap songs had a lot of guitar on them. So I don't know that Anthrax can really lay claim to that, but they were the first, I think, designated heavy metal band to produce a song with rap lyrics. I'm the Man, again, is a joke, but it's kind of a catchy song. It honestly made their career in the late 80s. I mean, Among the Living was doing great by thrash standards, but I'm the Man was a genuine hit. But what I loved about that album was their cover of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Anthrax do great cover tunes, and Joey Belladonna is just such a great singer, and his voice fits that track, frankly, in a way Ozzy's didn't. I know. Sorry, Ozzy fans. But my favorite EP of all time was from a band, again, that I don't talk about, even though they were a huge part of my metal fandom as a kid, the same year, 1987, and that's going to be Garage Days Revisited, the 598 EP. I remember going into the store to buy this thing, and every store that I could find, it was selling it for $5.99. And I went up to the counter and said, "Why are you selling the 598 EP for $5.99?" And the guy tossed me a penny. So I bought it at his store. So it's a famous EP in the CD era. They put out Garage Days Incorporated, I believe, which was a 2-album cover song set that included the same songs. But by then, Metallica had all of their rough edges filed off during the recording of the eponymous Black album. And I just don't like it as well. Garage Days Revisited was just a brutal head crusher of an album. And frankly, I think it was way better than And Justice for All. It was their way of introducing Jason Newsted to the world. It has 5 songs. They're all very high energy. They're songs that, as somebody who was never into the new wave of British heavy metal, and as an American fan, it was not easy to be into a lot of NWO BHM bands. I had never heard that material, and it was fantastic.
You can hear the bass guitar on it too.
Exactly.
That as well.
This is how much I love this album. I was at a friend's house one weekend. Now, I'm a huge gaming geek, so we were playing BattleTech. And the only album he had in the entire house was the 598 EP. So we listened to that album like 20 times in a row, and I never got sick of it. That's how much that album meant to me. And frankly, it's still Metallica's high water mark for me. I just bonded with that album. I never have gotten into the bands that produced that, except for I recently started listening to Killing Joke, which I quite enjoy. Very, very different. And it's hard now to reconcile myself to those other versions of the songs, though, right? Because Metallica owns that space. So those are my 2 favorite EPs, I'm the Man and Garage Days Revisited. All right, everyone.
I have a funny story.
Interesting fact about Garage Days is that, like, for me again, I had no idea who Budgie were. I found out about them, of course, through that album, right?
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know who Budgie were.
Budgie or Killing Joke. Yeah.
I was working out with a guy one time, and Stone Cold Crazy from Metallica comes on, the cover by Metallica. And he goes, "This is my favorite Metallica song." And I'm like, I got news for you.
Yeah. Although, Queen's version of that is quite good too. So we have a few minutes. If anybody wants to do a general discussion, I'm curious, in the digital age now, so it used to be kind of hard to track down some of these EPs. Now some artists have gotten away from LPs entirely and are only releasing EPs. So in the digital age, how likely are you guys to seek out EPs and purchase them? Anyone?
I generally don't don't do EPs. I don't really think I have a lot of them. I just prefer full albums myself. Also, I have a radio show, and I like to have, I like to own stuff. So I just don't know too many EPs.
But it seems like the classic bands like bundled a lot of the EPs and made them in the albums, with sort of there's who's coming out with new EPs?
Actually,
Yeah.
lots of people. Miley Cyrus did a thing where she was going to release 4 EPs, but apparently there was some pushback on that, and she ended up just releasing an album. Again, Noel Gallagher just did 3 EPs. Johnny Marr released 4 EPs. Now, actually, this is a trend that I really hate. He released 4 EPs, and then he released them all as a single album. And guess what? If you just got the album, it was cheaper than buying the EPs.
Well,
But sometimes the EPs are the only way that you can get songs.
Yeah.
I don't like how these bands are releasing the songs in general, like 2-3 months before the album comes out.
Isn't that an issue? That's like today you get on, and this goes back to our discussion last time, right? About
Unlimited music.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. Listening to music in a digital age, you get these bands who release like 5 or 6 singles in advance before the official album is released. And sometimes you even get those like 7 months before, and you have on Spotify like 5 songs. That's an EP.
Right. No, that's true. And I know as a consumer, I don't listen to the advanced singles because they're only available in streaming. I don't stream. I don't listen to things on YouTube. Like when Iron Maiden put out songs before Senjutsu came out, and people were debating how bad Writing on the Wall sounded. And I was like, how can you possibly judge what this song writes or what this song sounds like based on listening to it on YouTube? You need to get a good audio source to judge what it's supposed to sound like. Plus, the first song from an album is not necessarily going to be indicative of what the entire album is going to be like. I like to get the entire listening experience. So, okay, I guess we'll just leave it at that. This has been our favorite EPs, another great chat suggested by the Patreon. If you would like to check out the Patreon, I'm sure there will be links below. I'm not involved in any of that, thank goodness. We appreciate you watching the video. Like and subscribe, all of that stuff. I guess I'm supposed to say that. And thank you for watching The Contrarians. We'll see you next time.